Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Patricia and this is the Mystic in the Matrix. Thanks for stopping by and sharing some time with me. So in my last video I was mentioning that I have moved ahead and I am reading stories and things from my book here to share with you. So my book isn't in print at this time. I will be redoing it, and as with all my others. But at this moment I just have this copy. Actually, this copy, I forgot to mention the last one. This is one of the ones that I actually was doing a lot of editing into. So sometimes reading it, I'm just like, what the hell is that? What's going on here? So bear with me if I have to kind of stop. So today's, the chapter that I'm in here is the synchronicities chapter. And one thing I love about synchronicities is that it's very subtle woo, and yet it's very powerful in how it speaks to you. So sometimes if people just go, oh, it's a coincidence or anything, they miss that magic. They totally miss the magic if they call it a coincidence or don't kind of like sit with it for a little bit. So I'm going to start reading here for you, okay? So this is a little bit of an intro before the actual story. The universe uses the language of synchronicities to speak to us. I have had many experiences where I was trying to reach a greater understanding of something with compassion and reasoning, and through subtle synchronicities, I was able to have that aha moment. Sometimes just by asking a question in our mind or having the desire to achieve greater understanding, the answers will arrive in the strangest of ways. Synchronicities is that strange highway, and one of my favorite trips down Synchronicity Lane is narrated in a story I now call The Eye of My Ego. All right, here we go. The Eye of My Ego. We are all made in God's image. We are all one. We are all connected in some way. Bullshit was all I could think of. I didn't want to be like some people I knew. Assholes covered up by pretty outfits made to look social. I didn't want to be judged, yet here I was, doing it myself, judging. It was tough to be a decent human, all that forgiveness stuff. I was angry, afraid, and not feeling forgiving. I didn't want to think that God could be so ugly and cruel, or that God could be so vulnerable. I had a lot of healing to do before I could embrace this philosophy. Instead, I would just focus on schoolwork and raising my children. My fears and personal understandings would just have to wait. The next day at school, my creative nonfiction teacher reminded us that we had an essay due in a few days. We would be expected to read our essays in the classroom. After class, I immediately went to the bus stop and got on my bus to go home. I liked the ride home after school. I took that time to just sit and be still and observe the people coming and going from the bus. That day, halfway home, a man with a noticeable, disfiguring ailment got on the bus. I watched how people responded to him. I had never seen him before. As I studied this man and the world around him, I began to feel like I was an invisible observer of the world. If all things in life had a purpose, what was the purpose of this? What was his purpose? Soon the man got off the bus. With my thoughts reeling in philosophy, I watched him walk away. An essay began to form in my mind. A week later, nervously, yet strangely excited, I pulled my essay out from my binder and cleared my throat. The class settled in their seats. The teacher acknowledged me with a wave of his hand. I cleared my throat a second time and began to read to the class. The Eye of My Ego. With every step he took down the aisle of the bus, the eyes of others followed. There was no patches of smooth skin to be found on what was exposed, only the prevailing warts of some disease that clung to his aging complexion. Aware of the unwanted attention, he continued until he found a seat. Sitting right behind him, I stared and regarded him as a hideous monster that had been unleashed into my perfect little world. I couldn't help but think of the X-Men and the mutant toad. I watched in anticipation for a long tongue to roll out from his mouth and snap up a fly. My gaze slowly scanned the back of his wool hat, passing the suede of his coat, and found the hands that betrayed his condition. I leaned back, unsure of his diagnosis, and afraid that perhaps tomorrow I too would turn to the mirror and scream, "What have I become?" Adjusting his leather briefcase, he looked out the window, watching the blurs of the businesses go by, as he ran his swollen hand through his gray hair, carefully patting it into place. His reflection mesmerized me as I outlined the stranger-than-fiction profile. As I played connect the dots with an invisible line, I found the eyes, those human eyes. Shame was the picture revealed. It was not his shame, but rather mine. We had seen each other in that moment when the darkness swallows the light. He saw my eyes fall to the ground while his remained strong and focused. And I knew in this moment that it was me who had become the hideous monster and that had been unleashed into his unperfect world. He pulled the bell cord to announce his departure. As the doors opened, he paused, giving the driver a gentleman's wave and respectful thank you. Quietly, as his silhouette walked off, I said a prayer for the man, a prayer for healing, a prayer for the world to accept him, and a prayer for the eye of my ego. The class remained silent. Looks of deep contemplation scattered the classroom. Others just doodled. The next student began to read. On that very same day, while on my way home from school, the man from my story got on the bus. Ironically, he sat next to me. For the next 10 minutes, we politely chatted about nothing in particular. His strange and almost frightening complexion became more and more ordinary. As the bus entered the station at the shopping mall, we said our adieus. I got off and headed inside the mall. I couldn't help but feel that I had just encountered a universal life lesson. Why would I have had a personal encounter with that man the day of the reading my story to his class? Beyond the obvious, what was I to learn from this? As I entered the mall, I stopped in my tracks. From the overhead speakers in the mall, the song "One of Us" by Joan Osborne began to play. Shivers went up my spine and a smile stretched across my face, and I couldn't help but sing along. If God had a name, what would it be? And would you call it to his face if you were faced with him in all his glory? Okay, I can't sing very well and I'm out of tune, but yeah, God is great. Yeah, God is good. Yeah. What if God was one of us? Just a slob like one of us. Just a stranger on a bus trying to make his way home. And if God had a face, what would it look like? And would you want to see if seeing meant that you would have to believe in things like heaven and in Jesus and the saints and all the prophets? And yeah, God is great. God is good. Can you imagine that? That day that I had actually read that to the class, he sat beside me and then that song came on in the mall. Jesus. I love synchronicities. So please listen to the magic in your life. Sometimes it's really subtle, and in other times, like in my story, it was very clear. Make sure you like, you subscribed, and do that button where it says when I put a video on that you want to see it. All right. Anyways, that's it for today. You guys have a most beautiful day and blessings to you, and take care, and remember, stop judging each other, Jesus, and learn from our lessons, okay?